Their movement is not about borders. It's about brotherhood. In Arusha, a small Tanzanian town known for peace and unity, crowds gather to welcome them. "Youth of Kenya, you are not alone," they shout. For the first time, African youth from two nations walk hand in hand, demanding justice together. The message is clear. If leaders refuse to listen in Nairobi, the cry for change will echo from Dar es Salaam to Kampala, from Kigali to Addis Ababa. This is not a protest. It's a revolution of minds. Videos flood social media. Young people waving placards reading, "We don't need promises, we need progress." Africa belongs to its youth. No jobs, no peace. The government tries to calm the storm with speeches and press conferences. But the streets no longer trust words. They want action. They want leaders who live the same life as the people they govern. They want justice for the poor, education for the young, and dignity for the worker. Some call this the East. Others call it a warning. But for the youth marching under the burning sun, it's simply called hope. At the border, journalists capture emotional moments. A young Kenyan woman holding a Tanzanian flag, tears in her eyes, saying, "We don't want to fight. We just want to be heard." Behind her, thousands chant in unity. One Africa, one people. The movement grows beyond politics. It becomes cultural, spiritual, generational. Artists paint murals of youth holding torches of freedom. Musicians compose songs that rise on TikTok and radio stations. Every beat, every lyric, every heart carries the same message. It's time for Africa's youth to rise. But with every movement comes resistance. Authorities tighten borders, internet blackouts begin, and leaders warn against foreign interference. Yet, the youth remain undeterred. They live stream through VPNs. They organize through encrypted chats. They spread truth through music and art, proving that no wall can block an idea whose time has come. Across East Africa, universities hold candlelight vigils. Mothers pray for their sons and daughters who have joined the march. And in the silence of the night, a question begins to rise in every household. If not us, then who? If not now, then when? Kenya's youth are not just fighting for themselves. They're fighting for the millions of Africans who wake up every day to the same struggle. To survive, to dream, to matter. The movement has no single leader, because it doesn't need one. It's powered by the hearts of thousands. Each voice, each hand, each step is part of a much bigger story. A story that says, Africa's future will no longer be written by the old hands of corruption. It will be built by the young, brave, educated, and unstoppable. As the marchers reach the Tanzanian plains, the crowd grows louder. They sing songs of unity in Swahili and English. Uhuru wa vijana, freedom for the youth. Mabadiliko sasa, change now. Drone footage captures a sea of humanity moving together like a living river. A symbol of power that no bullet can silence, no border can contain. And as night falls, campfires light up the horizon. The youth sit together, sharing stories, food, and dreams. They know tomorrow will not be easy. But for the first time, they feel what true freedom tastes like, not given, but earned. This is not the end. It's the beginning of a new chapter in African history. A chapter written not in the language of fear, but of courage. Not by politicians, but by the people. Not in isolation, but in unity. Because when Kenyan youth rise up, they don't rise for Kenya alone. They rise for every African child who still believes that change is possible. And as they cross into Tanzania, their footsteps carry a message across the continent. We are the generation that will not wait. We are the generation that will change everything. In the heart of East Africa, under the blazing African sun, something extraordinary is happening. From the narrow alleyways of Nairobi to the borderlands near Namanga, a new voice is rising. The voice of Kenya's youth. Tired of broken promises, tired of corruption, and tired of waiting, they are stepping beyond fear. And now, for the first time in modern history, they are crossing into Tanzania, not as migrants or refugees, but as a generation demanding justice, unity, and change. A storm brewing beneath the surface. For decades, Kenya has been hailed as one of East Africa's strongest economies, a hub of innovation, trade, and culture. But behind the glass towers of Nairobi and the political speeches on national television, there's a hidden truth, a generation betrayed. Young people make up almost 70% of the nation's population, yet they hold the smallest share of power. They graduate with degrees, but find no jobs. They see politicians grow rich, while their own parents struggle to afford food and rent. They hear promises during every election, yet year after year, nothing changes. A young protester from Mombasa said it best. "We were told education is the key, but nobody told us the rich already have the lock." The frustration didn't begin overnight. It grew slowly, through inflation, inequality, and injustice, until finally it exploded. The day the youth said enough. It started as a few peaceful marches in Nairobi. Students, teachers, jobless graduates, carrying signs that said, "We want change," and "Our future matters." But within days, thousands joined in. From Eldoret to Kisumu, from Nakuru to Garissa, crowds began to swell. What made this movement different was its unity. Tribes, languages, and religions, things that once divided, now disappeared. For the first time, young Kikuyu, Luo, Somali, and Kamba marched side by side, shouting one name, Kenya. Their message spread like wildfire across social media. Twitter and TikTok became digital battlefields of truth. Clips of peaceful marches, tear gas, and defiant songs flooded timelines. "They can silence one of us," a protester shouted, "but they can't silence all of us." And they didn't stop at the borders of Kenya. Crossing the border, unity beyond lines. As the movement grew, neighboring Tanzania began to take notice. Young Tanzanians watched with pride, inspiration, and pain, because their story was not so different. They too faced unemployment, corruption, and a shrinking space for youth voices. Then came the moment that shocked the world. Hundreds of Kenyan youth crossed into Tanzania, carrying banners that read, "We are not foreigners, we are Africans. Borders divide us, but our pain unites us." At the Namanga border, the Kenyan and Tanzanian flags waved side by side, not as rivals, but as symbols of brotherhood. Tanzanian youth came out to meet them, holding water, food, and solidarity. For a moment, the entire region witnessed something deeply symbolic. East Africa standing as one, a movement beyond politics. This was not a rebellion. It was not about overthrowing governments or burning flags. It was about something purer, dignity. The right to be heard, the right to dream, the right to live without fear of hunger, exploitation, or corruption. From Arusha to Dar es Salaam, young Tanzanians joined in marches of unity, chanting together with Kenyans, "Mabadiliko sasa, change now. Uhuru wa vijana, freedom for the youth." For once, the African Union didn't have to call for peace. The people themselves were creating it. The energy spread to Uganda, Rwanda, and even South Sudan. Messages of support poured in. "Kenya's youth, your courage gives us strength. East Africa is waking up." It was no longer a protest. It became a continent-wide awakening. The digital revolution. While authorities tried to block the movement with tear gas and curfews, the youth turned to their phones. VPNs, encrypted apps, and live streams became their weapons. They uploaded videos of injustice. They recorded voices of hope. They told their own stories, raw, unfiltered, and real. In one viral video, a young woman stands before a line of riot police, her voice trembling yet firm. "I have no gun. My voice is my weapon. My dream is my shield." That video reached millions. It inspired students from Nairobi University to organize a 24-hour live stream of solidarity, connecting youth from 8 African. A 23-year-old activist, Jamal from Nairobi, spoke through a megaphone. "We are not enemies of the state. We are the children of the nation. If our leaders won't stand for us, we will stand for ourselves." And standing they did, shoulder to shoulder, unafraid. Mothers, teachers, and the silent supporters. While the youth filled the streets, the older generation began to awaken too. Mothers cooked food for protesters. Teachers opened school gates as shelters. Clergy offered prayers for peace. Even some police officers, silently moved, lowered their shields and let the youth pass. One officer was heard whispering, "My son is out there too." That moment broke hearts and built bridges. Because this was never a war between the people and the state. It was a war between truth and corruption, hope and fear, the spirit of unity. By the third week, the movement had spread like a wave through East Africa. Artists painted murals showing young hands breaking chains. Rappers released protest songs that trended on YouTube. Influencers used their platforms to amplify unheard voices. One powerful mural in Nairobi read, "When the youth unite, even mountains move." And that's exactly what happened. Mountains began to move. Regional leaders were forced to comment. International media started paying attention. Suddenly, the world was watching Kenya and Tanzania, not as victims of poverty, but as symbols of courage. Beyond borders, the birth of the Pan-African generation. What began as a cry for jobs and justice had become something much larger. A rebirth of Pan-African unity. From Ghana to South Africa, hashtags like Rise Africa and hashtag Youth for Change trended for weeks. Universities hosted discussions about youth leadership and accountability. African diasporas in London, New York, and Dubai organized rallies in solidarity. The message was clear. This generation would not repeat the mistakes of the past. They would not be divided by tribe, language, or border. They would build the Africa their ancestors dreamed of, united, just, and free. Hope in the fire. In one of the most powerful moments of the movement, a young girl, no older than 14, stood on a crate, her voice breaking as she shouted, "My father has no job." Africa itself. The fires that once symbolized destruction now burned as torches of light. The chants that once sounded like rage now sounded like rebirth. The turning point. Finally, under global pressure and growing unrest, officials from both Kenya and Tanzania met to discuss youth reforms. They promised education funding, job creation, and a joint East African Youth Council. Many doubted their sincerity, but the movement had already won something greater than policy. Months later, long after the marches ended, something incredible remained: connection. Kenyan and Tanzanian youth organizations began collaborating on clean water projects, tech startups, and education drives. New community networks emerged, powered by trust and shared struggle. They had learned that true change doesn't always start in government buildings. It starts in the streets, in classrooms, in the hearts of people who refuse to give up. And that is the greatest victory of all. A new dawn for Africa. As the sun rises over the Serengeti, you can almost feel it. The pulse of a new generation. One that doesn't wait for saviors. One that doesn't fear authority. One that dares to believe. Kenyan youth have shown that courage is contagious. Their footsteps crossing into Tanzania were not just steps on the soil, they were steps into history. Steps that say, we are not the future, we are the present, and we are ready to build the Africa we deserve. Because when a generation decides to rise, nothing and no one can stop them. Final message. This is more than a protest. It's a promise that Africa's youth will never again be silent spectators in their own story. They will speak, they will rise, and they will change the course of history, not with violence, but with unity, art, truth, and unstoppable belief. And so the march continues, not just on the roads of Kenya and Tanzania, but in every African heart that dares to dream. Because when Kenyan youth rise up, they rise for all of Africa. In the heart of East Africa, something historic is unfolding. From the dusty streets of Nairobi to the green hills near the Tanzanian border, the youth of Kenya are rising, not with weapons, but with voices that refuse to be silenced. They march through the sun and rain, their flags waving high, their chants echoing across the valleys. We want change. These are not rebels. These are students, farmers, job seekers, dreamers, the forgotten generation finally stepping into the light. For years, Kenya's youth have been promised a future, promised jobs, fairness, and opportunities. But corruption, inequality, and political betrayal have turned those promises into ashes. Now, with unemployment soaring and prices climbing higher each month, patience has reached its breaking point. Across the border, Tanzania watches. And then, something no one expected, young Kenyans begin to cross into Tanzania.